Jeddah. This high-octane street circuit, where the cars fly around at a speed of up to 341 km per hour, has only been part of the F1 calendar since 2021. The timeline from conception to the first race was less than 2 years. The Corniche area of Jeddah turned from this into this. When plans were announced that an F1 track was to be built in Saudi Arabia, the criticism didn't end with the expected sports washing allegations. This missile strike happened just kilometers from the circuit during the race weekend in 2022. But after an emergency meeting, the race went on, despite pictures like this. But the risks didn't end there. Due to the tight and fast nature of the track, one tiny mistake and you'll end up having a huge crash, as Mick Schumacher found out the hard way in 2022. Sergio Perez labelled Jeddah as the most dangerous circuit on the calendar. But before all the controversies, the area looked like this. So how did they do it? To understand that, we need to discuss the design process, the build itself, its incredible lighting system, and finally, probably most mind-blowing of all, the fact that this circuit is just a placeholder for the long-term Saudi Arabia F1 track coming in 2028. The design process for the Jeddah street circuit actually began on Google Earth to try and understand which areas of Jeddah would best suit a racing track. Formula 1 sent a delegation to Saudi Arabia in January 2020 to assess potential sites, and it quickly became apparent that the Corniche area of Jeddah stood out. It's got great panoramic views of the coast, and its long sweeping roads allowed for a fast and exciting circuit design. The coastal strip is actually reclaimed land, which created complexities in the construction process, which we'll come back to soon. In October 2020, Saudi Arabia appeared on a provisional F1 calendar for the 2021 season, which was shown to the teams. Just 1 month later, in November, it was announced that the city of Jeddah, Saudi Arabia's second biggest city, would host this inaugural race. Tilke Engineers, founded by Hermann Tilke, the man responsible for designs of tracks such as Kota, Red Bull Ring and Baku, were commissioned for the Jeddah circuit. When designing the track, there was a real desire to move away from a street circuit concept that involved 90-degree, slow-speed corners with a stop-start nature towards a fast-flowing layout. It's fair to say they achieved that with a 27-turn, 6.174km track, making it the third longest track on the calendar behind Las Vegas and Spa. It has an average speed of 251 km per hour and a top speed of 341 km per hour, meaning it's the second fastest circuit behind Monza. Just quickly, if you're enjoying this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit the subscribe button. More than 99% of you watching aren't subscribed, and I'd love to get that down to 90%. Anyway, how was the track actually built? The Jeddah F1 circuit was built in record time, around 12 months from breaking ground to being race ready. As I alluded to earlier, one of the first challenges was understanding the ground and the soil which the track was to be built upon. This was key, as previously some of this land didn't exist. It was part of the Red Sea. The narrow nature of the track also added to the construction complexities. At its peak, there were 1,250 people working around the clock to get the circuit ready for its first F1 race in December 2021. Saudi Arabia doesn't get rain often, but when it does, it's usually very heavy, so the circuit needed a great drainage system. They installed a 7.1km slot drain to be able to cope with the potential heavy downpours. On the opposite end of the weather spectrum, Saudi Arabia often experiences extreme heat, so picking the right road surface was crucial. They opted for a polymer-modified bitumen in the asphalt, which allows for it to have durability and elasticity. Essentially, it increases its resistance to cracking, which improves its overall longevity. In total, they put down 37,000 tons of asphalt. Where they could, they sourced materials locally. So for example, they sourced the bitumen from nearby city, Makkah. To make the track safe for both spectators and the drivers, 3,300 pieces of concrete wall were placed around the track, along with 3,000 Tech Pro barriers. As the months went by, the track was nearing completion, but one glaring thing was missing. The decision to make Jeddah a night race was a pretty easy one. They simply don't get the cooler weather, so for the comfort of the fans and to promote better racing, it was the obvious choice. However, to host a night race for both the drivers' and fans' visibility, the track needed a mega lighting system. And as you can imagine, the FIA have very strict standards on lighting uniformity and glare control. Musco Lighting was commissioned to carry out this task, who have previously shown their ability to meet all demands on other circuits such as Bahrain and Abu Dhabi. They had a timeline of just 8 months to install the 2,212 light fixtures by using more than 20,000 kilometers of electrical wiring. They opted for a total light control LED system which meets all the requirements, gives them more flexibility, and allows them to put on light shows like this. The idea of hosting an F1 race in Saudi Arabia was always meant to be on a permanent track. Prince Khalid said, "We love motorsport and we didn't want to wait until that project is finished. So the idea is to start with a street race and then, when the track is ready, we'll move to that location." The project he's referring to is this, Qiddiya, one of Saudi Arabia's current mega projects built to be the home of everything sports and entertainment. Not only will it have the world's longest, fastest and tallest roller coaster, but it will have this, the Qiddiya Speed Park. The circuit will run counterclockwise and feature over 350 feet or 108 meters of elevation change. There will be 21 corners and the cars will be able to reach speeds of up to 200 miles per hour, which is 320 kilometers per hour. It will be the longest track on the F1 calendar. One of its most striking sections will be this, nicknamed the Blade. The corner will rise 70 meters or 230 feet, making it equivalent to a 20-story building. The roller coaster I mentioned earlier, by the way, will intertwine with the edge of the F1 track. Since its conception and the start of construction, it's had multiple delays, but it's set to host its first F1 race in the 2028 season. So yeah, everything about this track will be the definition of bigger and better when it's actually complete